Right, grade 12. I'm just going to recap quickly the previous lesson, the lesson we did yesterday, just so that you can remember where exactly we are. Right, we are busy looking at the short run cost decisions, output decisions of the individual producer. All right, so remember we said in the short run, remember the short run means that at least one of the inputs of the business is fixed. Normally it would be your land and buildings or your machinery or something like that. But in the short run, there's at least one of your inputs that is a fixed input. It cannot be changed. Remember, time has to pass, time and planning has to happen before those fixed factors can be changed. All right, now we said that in the short run, the market price is determined by the market demand and the market supply. Okay, so the market demand and market supply will come up with a price. Our individual producer is a price taker, a passive price taker. All right, there's nothing that our individual producer can do to change the price. All he needs to do is accept the price from the market, and then he has to decide if this is the market price, how much am I willing to produce at this market price? Okay, so there's two different short-run decisions that has to be made. Okay, two things that he has to look at. He's going to look at this price and he's going to decide, at this price, am I willing to continue my production or am I going to shut down? Secondly, if I don't shut down and I continue production, how much am I willing to produce at this price? So how much output am I willing to produce and sell at this market price? All right. And in the previous lesson, we looked at the two profit maximization rules. Remember, we said each individual business would like to maximize their profit. Okay, now they would want to maximize their profit. How do we decide? How do they know where they will maximize their profit? Yesterday we looked at two separate rules. Okay, the first rule is the marginal revenue, marginal cost rule. We did this yesterday. Okay, so I'm just recapping. We said that profits are maximized. There's your rule. Profits are always maximized where marginal revenue and marginal costs are equal. And this is the rule that you will be working with by far the most. You will see in the coming couple of days as we do more lessons, we are constantly going to refer to marginal revenue and marginal cost. So very important, profits are maximized where marginal revenue and marginal cost is equal. The second rule that we looked at previously was the total cost, total revenue approach. Okay, we said basically that profit is the difference, the positive difference between total revenue and total cost. So your profits are maximized where the positive difference between total revenue and total cost is at its maximum. So in other words, where you're calculating the profit, profits are maximized where your profit, the positive answer is the biggest. And then the last thing we did in the previous lesson is we looked at the total cost, total revenue approach on a graph. All right, this is the basic graph. Remember, we drew this together. You are supposed to have this in your book now, in your workbook right now, where we scratched on this graph. We made changes to this graph. And then we said if we are given a graph, profits are maximized. Here's the rule. Profits are maximized where the vertical distance between total revenue and total cost is the biggest when my total revenue is higher than my total cost. Remember, if total revenue is more than total cost, is a profit. When total cost is more than total revenue, it is a loss. Businesses don't want to maximize their losses. They want to maximize their profits. All right, so where the positive difference between total revenue and total cost is the highest, if you're doing a calculation, or if you have to find it on a graph, profits are maximized where the vertical distance between total revenue and total cost is the biggest when total revenue is above total cost. All right, so this is just a summary, okay, of our profit maximization rules as we did them in the previous lesson. Okay, each individual producer, his goal is profit maximization. Remember, I've said it repeatedly now, businesses don't want to make profits. They would like to maximize profit. All right, so their goal is to maximize profit, which means they have to find the output level where they maximize their profits. At that given market price that they cannot change, they will choose to produce the output where they can maximize their profits. Where do they maximize their profits? Two rules. Either where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, or where total revenue minus total cost is at its maximum. The positive difference between total revenue and total cost is at its highest. All right, those are your short run decisions. Remember, I said there's two choices that the individual producer must make. Am I going to continue production, or am I start shutting down? If I continue production, how much am I willing to produce? And this is how we answer that question. Then we look either at marginal cost and marginal revenue, or we look at total revenue and total cost. That is your short run. Now we are going to look at the long run. In the long run, how do they decide? How does the individual producer, how much does he decide how much to produce in the long run? Okay. Now, first of all, in the short run, we said that the short run, one of the characteristics is that at least one of the inputs for the business is fixed. So there's at least one of their production factors, one of the inputs, that they cannot increase or decrease. In the short run, it is fixed. In the long run, all inputs are variable. Okay, so in the long run, in other words, there are no fixed costs. All the costs are variable because all of your factors, all of your inputs can be changed. Okay, so in the short run, for example, if you want to increase your production in the short run, you can hire more workers. You can ask your workers to work overtime. You can buy more raw materials. There's plenty of things that you can do in the short run, but in the short run, you cannot import a new machine. You cannot build another factory. Those are things that are fixed in the short run. Those are things that takes time and planning to change. It is not something that you can just do overnight. All right. It takes time and planning to change. You have to save. You have to apply for financing. It takes time. Okay. And just remember, just quickly, sidebar, that the difference when we talk about the long run and the short run, remember, in economics, it doesn't refer to a specific amount of time necessarily. The long run is that period of time, however long it takes, when at least one input is fixed. So we don't measure it in terms of months and years and stuff like that. It's that period of time where at least one input is fixed. And the long run is that period of time, however long it is, where all of your inputs have become variable. So enough time has passed, you've done your planning, you've done your financing, you've saved your money, etc., etc. And now it is possible for you to change those fixed factors as well. So in the long run, what a business can do to increase their production is, for example, they can change the size of the factory. If we have one factory, we can extend the factory. We can build another factory. Then we can buy another building. This can only be done in the long run. We can hire more workers. This can happen in the short run or the long run. We can add extra production lines. Okay, so we can start producing more different products, add to our product line. We can import a new machine. We can train our workers to become better. We can implement technology where we didn't before. Anything is possible in the long run. What can also happen in the long run is that the industry itself can either expand or shrink. Right, remember we are talking about the perfect market. Everything that we are saying here applies to the perfect market. So in the perfect market, we said there's freedom of entry and exit. All right, there's no barriers to entry. So anybody, any new business wishing to enter the industry can do so. There's nothing preventing them from entering the industry. Any businesses already in the industry wanting to leave to make an investment elsewhere, they are free to leave. They are not bound to this industry. So what will happen if industries in this industry, businesses in this industry already is making economic profit, we said those economic profit is the sign for new entrepreneurs to enter. They want to enter this industry because they also want to come and make some profits in this industry. All right. If businesses already in this industry is making losses, some of them are going to want to leave. They don't want to be in an industry to make losses. They want to make a profit. So if they're not profitable, they're going to close down their business and they're going to leave. All right. So in the market, the industry itself can either get bigger if more people are entering the market, or it can get smaller if existing businesses are leaving the industry. All right. Now, generally, an entrepreneur will always start on a small scale. Okay, so if I enter into this industry and I also open a business in this industry, I'm going to start with a small scale operation. I'm going to start my business, I'm going to start it small. All right, because it's expensive to start a business, right? So, and you don't know what the market is, you've done your market research, you don't know how popular the product is going to be, you don't know if people are actually going to buy it. So you start on a small scale rather, keeping your costs as low as possible. And then as you get more settled in the industry, you see the demand is there, you want to increase your production, then you're going to expand over time. Okay, so you start small and over time you start expanding your business. All right. Now, initially, when you start your business and you start expanding initially, your average cost will initially decrease. Okay, your average cost will decrease. In other words, the unit cost, what it's costing you to produce one article is becoming less and less and less. That is economies of scale. Okay, we did this last year in grade 11. There it is, economies of scale. Economies of scale means that my average cost will decrease as my production increases. Now, I know I'm experiencing economies of scale if I increase my production and my average costs decrease as a result of this expansion. Okay, economies of scale happens because of a variety of reasons, right? The first thing is specialization. All right, when I start my business, my workers are inexperienced. They're not 100% sure as what they're doing. We do division of labor. Okay, and people get used to their job. They start gaining some experience. They start doing their job well. They get better and better at what they are doing. Okay, so when they specialize and they concentrate on only a small part of the production process, they get better and better and better at their job. Right, so when they get better at their job, they work faster and they work more accurately. So there's less mistakes and they get more work done in a given day. All right. Another factor that can cause economies of scale is improved technology. All right. So I implement new technology. There's new and better production methods, which also increases productivity. So without increasing costs necessarily, we are able to produce more because technology works faster than people. Now, if I replace people, labor-intensive production methods with more capital-intensive production methods, and I start using a machine to do the work. Remember, machines don't take tea time, they don't need lunch, they can work 24/7. So my production will increase tremendously. Productivity will increase with the same costs, more or less. I'm able to produce more. Right, but a business can also become too large and clumsy, and it can reach a stage where further expansion will result in higher unit costs. Okay, so if I reach a point where I try to increase my production even further, but as a result of this increase in production, my average cost starts to increase, then it is called diseconomies of scale. Okay, diseconomies of scale will happen if I increase my production and at the same time, because of the increase in my production, my average cost starts to increase. Okay, what can cause diseconomies of scale? First of all, my workers are bored. Yeah, they've done the same, they do the same thing day after day after day. They lose concentration, they lose focus, they start making mistakes because they are bored. My machines are outdated, my machines are very old, I actually need to replace them, so they're breaking all the time. If the machines are broken, we can't produce anything, everything stands still. Workers are still paid, there's still water and electricity to be paid, but we're not producing anything. The costs are increasing, but my production not so much. All right, so very important. If I increase my production and my average cost decreases, that is economies of scale. If I increase my production and it causes my average cost to increase, that is diseconomies of scale. If we represent this on a graph, okay, this is also very, very important. They do ask this every now and then. It used to be asked in an SBA task not long ago, okay. When I discuss this graph, everything that I'm saying basically is appearing here underneath the graph, okay. So everything I'm saying basically is written there, so you can work through this afterwards, okay. So if we look at this, all of these SAC graphs, all the graphs labeled SAC, that stands for short run average cost, okay? And you will see each of these short run average cost curves. I'll make them in a different color so it's clear, right? If we combine them, okay, there where they touch, you can see if we draw an average cost curve surrounding all of them, this purple one, that is your long run average cost curve, okay? Now you should know from last year and from the revision that we have done, the shape of your average cost is always, it's called U-shaped, right? Because it decreases, it reaches a minimum, and then it starts to increase. Okay, all of them have the same shape. They decrease up to a minimum point, and then they start increase. Even the long run one decreases up to that point, and then it starts increasing. Okay, now the theory behind this is that if we start a business, remember I said we start the business on a small scale. All right, so SAC1 is basically the average cost curve in the short run of a new business. It's the smallest business out of all of them, okay? SAC 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all of them, all 5 of them, represent different factory sizes, okay? SAC1 is the smallest, the average cost curve for the smallest factory, because you will see here at this point, the average cost is measured on this axis, quantity output is here, okay? So at this point on SAC1, my average cost is 50 Rand. My unit cost is 50 Rand a unit, and we are producing 50 units. All right, so we are producing gadgets. The unit cost, it's costing me 50 Rand to produce every single gadget, and I am producing 50 of those items. All right. It is the smallest factory size because it has the lowest output. Okay, if I expand my factory to SAC2, the green graph, okay, you will see this is now the second smallest factory size. It is bigger than factory size 1 because if you look at this point, my average cost decreased. Okay, it's only costing me 30 Rand to produce one gadget now, but I am producing 75 of them. So because of the output, the bigger output, SAC2 is the average cost for a bigger factory size. I'm producing more at SAC2 compared to SAC1. It's a different factory size. If I expand further and I move to SAC3, okay, that's the average cost for factory size 3, you will see at this point here, my average cost is 20. So now it's costing me only 20 Rand to produce these gadgets. And at this point, I'm selling 120. Okay. Now, when I increase my factory size like this, if I increase my factory size from SAC1 to SAC2 to SAC3, you can see that the average cost decreases from 50 to 30 to 20. All right, so from here, factory size 1 up to factory size 3, we are experiencing economies of scale because my average cost is decreasing as my output is increasing. Okay, if I decide I want to increase my factory size even bigger, okay, so I'm at SAC3 and I want to increase my factory size even more, and I move to SAC4. Now I move to a bigger factory size now. At this point now we can see from SAC3 to SAC4, my average cost is now increasing again. SAC3 it was 20 Rand a unit. SAC4 at this point now it's going back up to 30. It is still a bigger factory. I'm producing more because I'm producing not 120 anymore, I'm producing 150 now. So my output is increasing, it's a bigger factory. But as a result of this expansion, my average costs are increasing again from 20 to 30. And the same thing is going to happen if I expand even further and I go to SAC5. At SAC5, at this point, I'm producing 175 units, but from SAC4 to SAC5, although my production has increased, my average costs have increased now from 30 to 50. All right, so SAC5 is my biggest factory size. Okay, that is where my factory size is the biggest. It's producing the highest output. So it's the biggest factory size. If I expand from SAC3, this point, to SAC4, that point, to SAC5, that point, you can see my output is increasing from 120 to 150 to 175. But what is happening now to my average cost is going up from 20 to 30 to 50. So expanding from SAC3 up to SAC5, this we will experience diseconomies of scale. Okay, we're experiencing diseconomies of scale because as I'm increasing my output, my average cost is increasing once again. Okay, now very important. When we calculate the profit per unit, okay, remember AC is average cost. It is the cost per unit. Okay, what does it cost us to make one gadget? The difference between average revenue and average cost gives me my profit per unit. So remember, average revenue, we said, is always equal to the price. Now, average revenue equals the price. And in a perfect market, the price is constant. The market determines the price. Okay? So we cannot change the price, which means we cannot change average revenue. Average revenue is what we receive for every unit we sell, the price. Okay, so whether you make a profit or not depends on my average cost and my average revenue. Average revenue we don't have any control over because the market price is determined by the market, not the individual producer. But the producer has control over his average cost. Now, in order, we said he wants to maximize his profits, right? So in order to maximize profits, he needs to minimize his costs and maximize his revenue. As I said, average revenue we have no control over. The market determines the price. Okay? Average cost we have control over. We are deciding, are we going to produce at this factory size or this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. Now we have to decide on our factory size. So we want to minimize our average costs because the lower the average cost, the more profit we can make per unit. So if we look at the long run average cost, now this purple one, it combines all the short-term ones. Ultimately, this entrepreneur is not going to expand past this point, point E. Okay, his ideal factory size is SAC3. Okay, that is his ideal factory size. He won't expand. He doesn't want to go to a bigger factory because the minute he does that, his average costs will increase. If your average cost increases, you are busy decreasing your profit. Not making a loss necessarily, we don't know from this information. But if my average cost increases, my profit will get smaller. We want to maximize our profit. So we want the profit to be as high as possible, as much as possible. So the ideal point in the long run, this entrepreneur will choose to produce 120 units because this is where his average cost is the lowest. All right. When you produce at a point where your average cost is the lowest, that is called technical efficiency, technical or productive efficiency, which means you are using all of your inputs in the most efficient way. You are eliminating wastage. You are producing at the lowest possible average cost. So this entrepreneur, in other words, in the short run, will play with these different kind of factory sizes. Ultimately, in the long run, he will not expand past factory size 3. He will choose this one. Why? Because this is where his average costs are the lowest. All right. That is all that I'm explaining there. Okay? Everything I said is basically explained in this paragraph. You can go and read through this now. Okay. The last thing for today, if we just look at the output of the industry. Okay, we've now looked at the output of the individual producer. Remember, we said the individual producer will choose the output level where he will maximize his profit. He will choose to produce the quantity, the output, where it is possible for him to maximize his profit. In the long run, that is going to be at the lowest point of his long run average cost curve, point E in that graph above. Okay, when we look at the industry, all the individual producers put together, okay, remember when the industry determines the price, that is their main job. The job of the market is to determine the price. And the industry will be in equilibrium where market demand and market supply is equal. All right, that is how they determine the price. Now, in the long run, businesses that are making an economic profit, okay, if they are making an economic profit, they are going to want to expand their factories in the long run, okay, because they want to make even more economic profit. But what is very important, if businesses in this industry already is making an economic profit, as I said, this economic profit will signal others to enter the industry. Remember, this is the perfect market. In the perfect market, there's freedom of entry and exit. There's no barriers to entry. There's nothing preventing anybody from entering into this industry. So new businesses will be attracted to the industry. They also want to enter this industry because others are making economic profits and they also want to come and make economic profits. So when they enter the industry, the supply is going to increase, okay? Because there's more suppliers now, more competitors entering the market. Your market supply will increase. So your graph will shift to the right. On the other hand, if businesses are making losses, okay, in this industry, the businesses already in this market is making a loss. Remember, businesses want to maximize profit. They don't want to make a loss. So if they are making losses, remember, again, in the perfect market, there's freedom of entry and exit. Nobody's going to put a gun against their head and say you have to stay in this industry. When they are making a loss, some of the entrepreneurs in this industry will choose to close down their business and to leave this industry. When businesses leave the industry, automatically the market supply will then decrease because there's fewer businesses now left in this industry. Okay, obviously if just one business enters and just one business leaves, it's not going to have an effect because there's many of them. Remember, each one is insignificant. But the thing is, in the industry, if there's many entrepreneurs entering the industry, supply will increase. If many of the businesses in this industry is making losses and they start leaving, many of them are leaving, the market supply will decrease. All right. Now, when your supply increases, okay, and the market supply moves to the right, that is going to cause the price to decrease. And I'm going to show you this on a graph in another lesson. Okay, when prices decrease, all those economic profits that they are making will disappear and each business will make a normal profit only. When businesses are making losses and some of them leave, lots and lots of them start leaving because they don't want to make losses anymore, market supply will decrease, which means prices will increase. So those that are left in this industry, the ones that didn't leave, their losses will disappear and they will start making normal profits. Now, when a normal profit is being made, there's no reason for anybody to enter anymore, and there's no reason for anybody to leave anymore, because it's just normal profits. And then the industry, obviously, in the long run, when they make a normal profit, then the industry is stabilized. All right. So the output of the industry will obviously be decided by how many businesses are entering if there's economic profits, or how many of them are leaving when there's economic losses. When there's entry into the market, economic profits will disappear and it will turn into normal profits because prices will drop. If people are leaving the industry, market supply will decrease, pushing the prices up, which means those losses will disappear, and people that stuck in this industry, that stayed in the industry, will make a normal profit. As soon as everybody makes a normal profit, nobody will enter anymore, nobody would leave, because there's no reason for them to enter or leave.